as I said at the end of, in the engagement review, there was the first 6 episodes. Some of the episodes seem to have ended with, like, somewhat of a hook for the next episode. Nothing we really got too much from the previous seasons. So, in the engagement, the question we were left, of course, with was how does Elaine feel about George being engaged? Because whenever Jerry told Elaine at the very end, she said, "Get out," and pushed Jerry, but you couldn't tell if she either, like, shocked, like, "Oh my gosh, George's engaged," or, "What? Why? How? How could he get before me?" Which I'm sure all of us get that way at times with some people in our lives, but, it happens. But, and of course also, it's also George just squirming even more and having second thoughts, even though he tried going through and laying all the cards down on the table with Susan. And Jerry, of course, just basically just folded, basically. It was just dealt his hand. He's like, I folded. Never mind. Not going to do this, basically it was. So, that's the main stories that really happened in this episode. Kramer, though, was the one who had the hook for the next episode, which in the next episode, we meet another very, very good reoccurring character. Reoccurred a couple more times throughout the series, but we'll get to that next in the next episode. But in the Postponement, so it starts off with Elaine telling Jerry about how there is a rabbi in the building, which the rabbi, actually, his name is Rabbi Kirschbaum, who is named after writer Bruce Kirschbaum, I think it's called, and the character is based off of Larry David and Bruce Kirschbaum portraying these rabbis on these Friday skits where they were rabbis. So that's where the idea came from. But I guess she said there's a rabbi in her building that she talked to, and he went over and talked to the owner of the dog, and the owner of the dog that they tried to kidnap at the end of the last episode that came all the way back, agreed to keep the dog inside from now on, which seemed to have helped. Of course, it did lead to an eventual episode coming up where Elaine, obviously still, ever since, has not had much love from dogs, but, that happens. But anyways, Jerry wants to know from Elaine, what did she think about George's engagement? Which she starts to seem a little, cold and want to avoid the subject. Of course, one question she asked was, is he happy? Which cuts to a scene with George out amongst with Susan, and they're discussing something about, how George thinks that the stall doors in the bathroom should come all the way down. And Susan didn't seem interested. She gave him can we change the subject? And of course, a few times we've had moments where it's like, they play voiceovers of like what the person's thinking about. I feel like it happened a lot more in this season. But George, of course, starts thinking about it. Another time he thinks like, oh my goodness, this woman doesn't like this. How am I supposed to marry this woman or whatnot? Again, having second thoughts, just like squirming, trying to find some way to get out of it. But Elaine keeps denying, though, saying that she's not jealous of George. Clearly, though, she is, as she goes and talks to her rabbi in her building about it, as he offers some advice. Of course, Kramer also is freaking out because of that kidnapping of the dog going on their permanent records and such. But then also, George came over after his lunch with Susan and talks to Jerry about, he feels he wants a little more time. So he wants to talk to Susan because in the engagement, they were going to get married around Christmas. Now he wants to talk Susan into postponing it till March 21st and get married on the first day of spring. Which, when George goes to Jerry's apartment to talk about it with, and then Jerry encourages him to just tell him you need a little more time, and George praises Jerry for being a good friend, and when he says, basically says, I wouldn't, if you did the worst thing to me ever, I wouldn't kill you or whatnot. And then when Kramer walked in afterwards, Jerry asked him that, and George, but Kramer gave him the exact opposite answer, basically. So Jerry was getting ready to go see a movie, Planet 9 from Outer Space, which he brings up that is actually the same movie that him, Elaine, and George were supposed to go see back in the Chinese restaurant episode that they didn't get to see. And of course, it's ironic how Jerry does go to see it with Kramer, the person who was not there. So, of course, George goes to see Susan and tries to convince her to change the date to March 21st. But instead of basically being honest, I need more time, he more so said, let's get married March 21st instead. And then Susan starts crying, and she's just like, What were you doing here? He's like, don't you want to marry me, George? My family said it was a mistake. I told them it wasn't. And he starts crying. So obviously, George is doomed and realizes, I can't get out of this one, basically. Until he went out to eat with Jerry again, and he sees this other couple where the husband's being all cool, calm, or the man's being cool and calm. I don't know if it's a husband and wife or it's just a boyfriend and girlfriend. They're all cool and collected, but then the girlfriend's bawling like a baby, and then George was got an idea. So he goes back to talk to Susan, and he bawls like a baby. And basically says he needs more time to get to know each other or whatnot. He just fake cries, and Susan consoles him, and which leads to George to stop crying. He's just oh, thank God. Obviously, we're relieving a lot of pressure on him. But then Elaine gets upset because she finds out that the rabbi has gone off and told everyone about how Elaine is jealous of George, even though she had denied already. And Elaine didn't find out until Jerry had told Elaine that the rabbi had told him about that. And of course, Elaine goes to see the rabbi. He just tells, well, I may have mentioned this person. She also mentioned someone in the building who Elaine was trying to get their attention of. And, that just sets Elaine off the deep end with the rabbi. And of course, in the closing credits, George and Susan were watching the rabbi do a sermon on the TV, and he starts talking about, some scripture, and then he mentions, for example, recently there's a woman, let's say her name was Elaine. She's jealous of her one friend. Let's say his name's George, and then George and Susan realize that, Elaine was jealous of their marriage when she wanted to get married. But of course, there was never really a follow-up story, I don't think, with them confronting Elaine about it. Jerry, meanwhile, though, here's what leads to the hook from this episode to the next one. Jerry and Kramer go to see that movie. Kramer, though, wants to take in a coffee that was not that was he didn't buy. He bought at a nearby Starbucks. He didn't buy it at the movie theater. So of course, since some people like to buy things cheaper before going to the theater, like snacks and drinks and whatnot. Been guilty of the snack part because sometimes I've gone to the dollar store, Five Below, and bought some candy and hid it in our pockets as we entered into the movie theater. And once it's down, they never know because movie theater candy's not cheap. Popcorn, though, get that, but candy or drinks, too expensive at the movie theater. Haven't been to a movie theater for a long time, though. I don't crave movie theater popcorn now. Thanks a lot, guys. Rats. But anyways, so Kramer pulls off the trick. He tries hiding the coffee in his pants, under his shirt. Well, I guess he tripped over someone trying to find a seat, and I guess he burned, and he got burned from the coffee. So now the hook is for the next episode is Kramer is now looking to sue them, so sue the Starbucks or the coffee place, which is Cafe Latte. I think it was he had gotten. He wants to sue them for the coffee being too hot, so they'll pay for his burn. And that's basically the Postponement. Good episode. Not really too much to say about the stories. Again, it just goes back and forth with is Elaine's jealous of George. George is trying to squirm out of this and postpone the wedding. Jerry's just kind of there, and of course, she's also trying to guess who was the one who was responsible for helping them with the kidnapping of the dog, which ends, of course, being Newman. And apparently the rabbi cannot keep a secret. So, solid episode, not much to say, short review, but, not much really to say with the stories. Good and effective, of course. In the next episode, though, of course, again, we follow up with what happened with Kramer trying to sue the coffee place for his burn. And we meet another ongoing, reoccurring character for a few episodes for the last few seasons. As, of course, mentioned also back in the non-fact Joker episode, if this guy's scene would not have been cut, may not have been considered for the part. Who are we talking about? You'll find out next. In the next episode, the Maestro. So guys, what are your thoughts on the Postponement episode? Make sure to leave your thoughts down in the comments section below. And be sure as always to slap a like on the video. Subscribe for more content on my channel. And follow me on Twitter as well, at TheManAirBoy93. Till then guys, I'm checking out. I'll catch you all in the Maestro review. Have a great rest of your night, guys. Peace out, everybody.